During this video, we're going to look at the Canon EOS 350D. The 350D uses a CR 2016 coin battery to keep the date, time and other settings. Open the battery door to slide its cartridge out of the battery compartment. Position the battery in the cartridge as shown, pulling the plastic tab over to secure it in place, then slide the cartridge back into its slot. Once in place, insert the main battery and close the door. To insert the compact flash card, open the door and insert with the label facing the LCD screen as shown. The power button is on the top next to the mode dial. When you look through the viewfinder, if the AF points don't look sharp, you can adjust the dial here until you see them clearly. For a lot of situations, the fully automatic mode, symbolised by a green rectangle, will be fine. Select this and then look through the viewfinder. Place your finger on the shutter button. The button has two steps. If you hold it down halfway, the focus points in the viewfinder will light up. These indicate what the camera is focusing on. Press the shutter button all the way to take your picture. If you're not happy with the focus, you can put the camera into manual focus mode using the switch on the side of the lens. Turning the focus wheel will allow us to focus on what we would like to. There are other automatic modes for specific situations. These are portrait mode, landscape mode, macro mode, sports mode, nighttime mode, and flash off automatic mode. These modes all have settings ideal for such types of photography. In order to take things a step further, we also have manual modes. P stands for Program Automatic Exposure and is an auto exposure mode which sets the aperture and shutter speed automatically. Exposure is also adjustable in this mode by pressing the AV button and turning the dial on the top of the camera. TV stands for time value and gives the shutter the priority and is used mainly to adjust the shutter speed by using the dial on the top of the camera for use in delayed exposure photography. Exposure can also be altered in TV mode by pressing the AV button and turning the dial on the top. AV stands for aperture value and this mode enables the user to set the aperture manually for creative use of depth of field using the dial on the top of the camera. Exposure is also adjustable by pressing the AV button and turning the dial on the top of the camera. M mode allows a user to set shutter speed using the dial on the top, and aperture again by pressing the AV button and using the top dial at the same time. A-depth mode is a mode that sets the depth of field automatically. Exposure is also adjustable. Adjust the exposure using the dial while holding down the AV button. If you notice shutter speed, aperture or the exposure level flashing, this is to let you know that due to the settings, the image is going to be underexposed or overexposed. In the manual modes we can also change the film speed by pressing the ISO button and then using the D-pad directional arrows we can select the appropriate speed. Watch my film speed video for more information. We can also adjust the white balance in these modes in order to achieve the right or wrong light source, depending on the results we are hoping for. Press the WB button and use the rear D-pad. Watch my white balance video for more information. We also have the ability to change the focus mode. One shot is best for still subjects. Once the shutter button is pressed halfway, the camera will focus. When using AI focus mode, the camera will select the appropriate mode depending on the movement of the subject. The AI servo mode is better for moving objects, as when the shutter button is pressed halfway, the camera will focus continuously until the shutter button is pressed all the way. A useful function is the ability to select individual focus points by pressing the AF point selection button and selecting the individual point we would like the camera to focus on using the D-pad. Once selected, press the shutter button to take the picture. Press set to disable the individual point and allow the camera to pick automatically. In order to take more than one picture at once, we can press the drive mode button. From here we can select continuous shooting. This will take pictures continually while the button is pressed. Self-timer mode will take an image after 10 seconds. In this mode it is advisable that you use the eye cover on the strap to prevent light from entering the viewfinder and affecting exposure. Metering mode is the method of measuring brightness. We can adjust this by pressing the metering mode button. Center weighted average metering is when it is weighted at the center and averaged out throughout the entire scene, as can be seen in this image. Partial metering is effective when the background is brighter than the subject we are taking pictures of and covers around 9% of the viewfinder area in the center. The red circle shows a general area which is weighted to achieve exposure. Evaluative metering is when the camera sets the exposure automatically by dividing the viewfinder into 35 zones. It will analyze the subject and lighting and select the correct exposure. If the lens is set to manual focus, the camera exposure will be based on the center AF point. On the 350D we can press the flash button on the front of the camera in order to pop up the flash and use it when shooting. We can also set the flash exposure. Press menu to go to the camera icon with a number 2 and move down to flash exposure compensation. Press set and adjust as necessary. Press set to save your selection. There is a depth of field button on the front of the camera which we can press to stop down the aperture in order to see the range of acceptable focus in the viewfinder. In low light conditions, the backlight button can help you see the settings screen more easily. Other useful functions on the 350D would include the ability to alter the brightness of the display. Press menu and then move across to the 4th icon which has a tool symbol. Then down to LCD brightness. By pressing set button in the middle of the D-pad, we can then adjust as desired. Press set again to make your selection. The info screen will display your current shooting settings while taking pictures. Some of the more useful advanced functions on the 350D include auto exposure bracketing. This allows us to capture 3 different exposure levels of successive shots. The first being a standard exposure, the second being decreased, and the third being increased. Press menu, go to the second icon on the right, a camera with a number 2, then move down to AEB. Press set and move sideways to select the amount of adjustment required. White balance bracketing allows us to shoot a shot with 3 different colour temperatures at once, either a blue amber bias or a magenta green bias. Press menu, go to the second icon on the right, a camera with a number 2, then move down to WB shift/bracket and press set to make a change. Use a graphical display to select the sort of colour changes you require. The image order for a blue amber bias is the standard colour temperature, the second a bluish tone and the third an amber tone. The image order for a magenta green bias is standard colour temperature, magenta bias and then green bias. Parameters gives us the options to adjust our image details. This consists of contrast, sharpness, saturation and colour tone. We can access this by pressing menu, going to the second camera menu and selecting parameters. Adjust as necessary. In order to play back images, we can press the play button. We can zoom in and out of these using the magnifying glass plus and minus buttons, and cycle through the pictures using the D-pad. During playback, the jump button will allow us to jump 10 images at a time, forwards or backwards. Pressing the info button while viewing images allows you to see the camera settings and a histogram of the image, which details image brightness across the colour spectrum. To download your pictures, connect the USB cable to the connection on the camera and to your computer. Then go to PC, select Canon EOS 350D, removable storage, DCIM and the required folder. Copy and paste the pictures to your desired location. Thanks for watching. If you found this video useful, please subscribe and feel free to like, share, comment and watch my other videos.